All right. So everybody, thanks so much for listening to Fire Breathing Rob. Whether you're listening to us on the YouTube, the podcast websites, or also on the radio, we greatly appreciate your time. And thanks so much for listening. And please subscribe, like, and share this interview if you are listening to us online. We have Lauren Kruger on, and she is going to be talking about her dog, Blaze. He is an amazing individual, and he does help a lot of kids with speech therapy. And Laura will dive deep into this in just a minute. But Laura, thanks so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having us on.
All right, awesome. So, Laura, can you talk a little bit about yourself to the viewers and the people listening, and also about Blaze?
Yeah, sure. So, again, my name is Laura Kruger. I am a speech language pathologist. I live and work in Florida. I'm in Port Orange, is where I work. I work at elementary school. So, I work with students doing speech and language therapy that have a variety of disabilities. Just speech impairments, language impairments, and then I also work with kids that are either on the spectrum or have different disabilities that affect their communication skills, their social emotional skills, and their learning skills. And then Blaze is my personal dog. He is almost 7. He's a standard
Oh.
golden doodle, and he's been doing animal assisted therapy with me and volunteering and doing volunteer work for about, let's see, we're going on our 4th year total. So,
So
yeah.
you've been working in with Blaze for 4 years. I know he's 7 years old, but have
Yep.
you been working? You've been working with him in the school for 4 years, then, correct?
Yes. So I started actually, I was in Minnesota when I got Blaze.
Okay.
I adopted him when he was 2. He was used for breeding. So he has a pretty sad story, but his turnaround is something that I always share with my kids that are maybe going through tough times, because he came from just being in a crate his whole life and not even knowing what treats or toys were when I got him. He didn't like his dog bed. He just preferred the cold floor. I even at one point during our trainings, one of our trainers said that they didn't know if he was going to be a good fit to be a therapy dog because of how shy and timid he was. And we've definitely proved her wrong. So I always tell my students, it's never too late, because look at Blaze now. He loves his job. And so it's a pretty cool story to share with others that are going through tough times. But we did start in Minnesota at my old district.
Mhm.
I've been very fortunate. Both my administrators at my district now and in Minnesota were very welcoming to the idea of animal assisted therapy. It's not that mainstream still to this
Yeah.
day. So I think a lot of times people might be a little apprehensive about the idea before actually knowing what it is. And I was very fortunate. Both my administrators were very supportive of it. So I started in Minnesota. We did a lot of volunteer work as well. I went to a few nursing homes,
Mm.
libraries to read with kids, and then I even went to a de-stress event at a college when they were getting ready for finals. So we've done a few things, but I mean, bringing him to work with me every day has just, I've seen such a huge impact on my students. And even I've had staff and families come up and tell me the same thing. So it's been
Yeah.
pretty cool to have him as my little coworker and partner.
Can you talk about Blaze's growth since you first got him until now?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, he didn't know what toys were. He didn't know what treats were.
Yeah.
But I formed a very strong bond with him, I think, pretty immediately after I did adopt him. I was living with somebody else at the time, and they did not have the same relationship that we did. So I think he knew, I found him, he found me. I was in a new city as well. I had just moved to Minnesota. So I was looking for both a companion, but I also was so interested in animal assisted therapy. So I was really looking for that kind of an animal that I could pursue that with. So he was very shy and timid. I started off with doing basic obedience training. I did a lot of socializing with him. And a lot of times we've grown up with animals our whole lives. My mom is huge into foster work with a few different organizations for dogs, and she's done cats. So I'm familiar with the background of, adopted dogs and cats. And unfortunately, a lot of times animals don't fully recover from their home environment, their first environment that they came into. So that was a concern of mine initially with Blaze because of how shy and timid he was. I was worried that he might have some triggers or things that would set him off and not be able to participate in all environments. So a lot of times adopted animals, they might get scared at out of nowhere, and you don't really know what that trigger is because you don't know what their life was before they came to you. So in our trainings, especially the advanced trainings that I did with Blaze for therapy work, they work on desensitizing your animal. So someone coming up from behind and touching them or their tails, maybe loud noises out of nowhere, working on going up escalators and elevators in the event that I was doing some crisis therapy work. So they expose your dog to a whole bunch of different settings and situations that they might encounter. And fortunately for Blaze, he got pretty used to it quickly. And at this point in time, I mean, come here, he's playing behind me, come here. I have lots of, some of my students, they just want to touch him and want attention all the time. And you basically can hang all over Blaze and he won't do much, but just sit there and paw at you to pet him more. But it is important to always watch for dog stress signals.
Yeah.
They did teach us that as well. So I'm aware of it. I teach my students to, here he is with his paw. If he removes himself from our setting, we sit on the floor with him to do therapy work. And if he removes himself from our circle, I just say he needs his personal space and he needs a break. Just like a lot of my students, they need their personal space and breaks too. So they really emphasize in therapy training to watch for stress signals so that, no matter what the circumstance is, your dog's always safe. And then the people around you are safe as well, because you just never really know.
Laura Kruger here on Fire Breathing Rob. She's talking about Blaze, who you can see in the picture right there. And he helps a lot of kids throughout his classroom days. And, as far as speech therapy and just keeping them calm and secure throughout the school day. Laura, as we keep going into the interview, speech therapy is such a tough field, but it's an extremely rewarding field. Yeah. What made you want to go into that field in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, our field's very broad, so there's a whole bunch of different settings that we can work in. Initially, I've always had a love for kids. I've grown up working in daycares and babysitting and that sort of thing. So at first, I was thinking about being a teacher when I was younger. Then my grandmom developed Parkinson's disease, and she had a speech therapist come to the house, and that really started to make me wonder, like, I love helping people. I want to help people in some way. And then when I was going to do my shadow work and observations in the school, I realized that there were speech therapists in the school and occupational therapists. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want something that's specialized. I want to touch as many people as I can. And then knowing that there were a variety of settings for me to dive into really made me want to pursue it even further. So that's how I got into it.
So how did you train Blaze? And you did talk about the training in general as far as the socialization with Blaze and him getting used to you. But the question I want to get to is, how did you train him to, deal with kids that have obviously different behaviors? Some have good lives, some have tough family lives in general. How did you get him ready for that?
Yeah. I will preface by saying he has a very calm demeanor. I get that question a lot from people, and they're like, how do you get him to be so calm? And I unfortunately don't have an answer. He just came to me this way. So he's very relaxed. And like I said, everyone that I talk to, they're like, he just makes you feel so calm. But I do work a lot with him with socializing. So we'll go out into stores. I bring him a lot of places with me, and I let people come up to him and pet him and talk with him and do treats. And then we practice our tricks. And then his circumstance, I don't do enough training and reinforcement, but it is important to keep up with the training, because there'll be times where we'll be in therapy and he'll just get up and want to go get somebody's food or something like that. And I'm like, get back here, we're at work. So those types of situations are the types of training that you have to keep up with. Unfortunately, it's not just like a one-time training you're done with. So I need to get better at that, because he's gotten to be a really big beggar lately. But so socialization, I would say, would be the biggest piece for him to prepare him for therapy work. But again, I did a course called Canine Citizens, Good Canine Citizens course. It was a therapy directed course for therapy animals as well as service dogs. So it was an in-person training. I did the group one, and it is throughout the country. I know somebody that's in Ohio doing it right now. So I know that they do offer it throughout the country. And I would highly recommend it to anyone that's looking to do therapy work, because like I said, it really is specific for every situation that you might encounter, and then those types of things that might trigger a dog or set them off, and it helps desensitize them to the loud noises, rough touch, crowds, just different things that you wouldn't expect to always run into. And then in the school, I definitely started off slow. I didn't just dive right into it. I brought him just for half of a day once a week, and then I brought him a few days a week just to let him get acclimated to the environment and get to know the kids and the staff. And then at this school, my current school, we moved pretty quickly because the kids and staff loved him so much, and he was loving it. Like, he gets so excited to go to work. So now he comes with me 5 days a week, but I don't use him in every therapy session. Of course, like, there are some students, I'm very fortunate. I have 2 other SLPs that are work with me in the school. So I would say at least 90% of my students on all of our caseloads love Blaze, but there are a few kids that he just doesn't touch, or maybe they're scared, they have allergies. So I'm fortunate to have another therapist that can see them. But for the most part, I mean, kids, they love him.
Can you talk about how Blaze helps kids? I'm thinking that when he goes in there, he makes a lot of kids feel relaxed. A lot of these kids see this dog, they may love dogs, and they do come out of their shell. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Okay.
I also work with a lot of students that have behavior intervention plans. So I'll work with administration and their teacher, and they earn special time with Blaze if they can follow through with the tasks in their classroom. So they'll earn walks with him, or treats from the office, or just any sort of specialized individual time with him. So that's a really good positive reinforcement system that we have. But I'll get calls from the office sometimes. I remember my first year at this district with Blaze, we had a student with autism that had eloped. He was very dysregulated and ran away from his classroom. And I just happened to be outside with Blaze, and admin, they were trying to get him and they couldn't. And as soon as he saw Blaze, he just froze. He stopped running. His whole demeanor changed, and he walked so nicely and calmly instead of screaming and crying. And he went right up to Blaze with me, walked him back to class, and then sat down and started working. So that's like, it was just amazing to see how quickly, his whole demeanor changed when he saw Blaze. And with that particular student, I did have on my caseload, but he hadn't seen Blaze yet. It was one of the first times I brought him in. So during that moment, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I know he's going to be successful here. And then it's just been continuous. I've helped a lot of students get out of their cars and go to the class in the beginning of the school year. Especially, it's hard for our younger kiddos, and a lot of students might be having a hard time not wanting to leave their parents, and then with the help of Blaze, they can calm down and get ready to learn. And then in speech, I have a lot of students that have difficulties communicating and expressing themselves, and they are just so much more confident with Blaze around. It's so great to see the types of relationships you want them to be building, peer relationships, but even just bonding with Blaze shows me, just so much progress throughout the year. So he helps in all aspects, but especially that social emotional piece, I think, has been the biggest impact that he's had with students. It's pretty incredible to see.
So when we talk about, I know you said elementary of the kids that you're dealing with, what is the age range, start to finish, that you usually help?
So 3, we start in pre-K, and then up to
Okay.
5th grade. So 12 usually.
Okay.
And then again, I work with students with a varied disability. So I work with our general education students in their general education classrooms. They come out for speech. And then we also have what we call mild moderate classrooms. So those are classrooms that are a smaller size with students that have higher needs. And then we also have more restricted environments for students that need maybe one-on-one support or a very small class size. So we have individualized needs for all of our students, obviously. So we go into classrooms, we pull students out for speech, and it's very diverse. We have a lot of different populations that we work with, so it's cool.
All right, so let's round out with the last 2 questions. Again, Laura Kruger here on Fire Breathing Rob, and Blaze is still in the background. We can still see him laying on his little bed there, relaxing.
He had a long day today.
I could understand. Oh, here he is, back again. He does love his pets and his cuddles, I'm sure. So.
Oh yeah, he loves attention. That's, I think, what makes him so successful, is because he just loves attention. So as long as he's getting that or treats, he'll stay around for as long as you need.
Okay. All right, so let's finish off. So can you give the audience, Laura, a few stories about Blaze really having some success with some kids?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So again, like I was just talking about with that one student, he had ran
Right.
away, and he just really didn't want to go back to classroom. I also had another student who, a different student, lost a family member, and he was new to our school, and he wasn't enjoying himself. He wasn't happy. He had a lot of difficulty staying in class.
Mhm.
So a lot of times when our students can't control their own emotions and their bodies, they get dysregulated. They can't control their feelings, they can't control their bodies. So they might end up outside screaming and crying or kicking or trying to harm themselves or others. And Blaze kind of thrives on those types of students. He will go right up to them. So a lot of times, if a student is outside and administration can't help the student calm their bodies, they'll call Blaze out. And a majority of the time, he's able to get them to calm down, and with some hugs and some petting, the soothing. Parts of petting a dog. There's research out there that says it calms
Yeah.
down people's heart rates and blood pressure. And I definitely see it with our students too. It calms down their bodies. He can help them get back to class. I've also had a few students come in and just not having good days. They might be really upset. They might not want to work at all for me. But then if we get on the floor with Blaze, they start participating. And I had one student, it was really sweet. She said she was having a really bad week, and then having Blaze with her made it all better. So that was really sweet to hear. And it's pretty consistent. I see that a lot. And with Blaze, he really just helps kids increase their confidence, especially with like literacy skills. We work a lot with speech sound disorders, social skills, and even fluency skills for students that might have stuttering
Yeah.
difficulties. He really helps bring out their confidence, and it's just more successful therapy sessions with him there.
Has COVID affected any of your, work or Blaze's work in general? Obviously, it's crazy for everybody in general, but go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. So last year was a little bit more tricky, I guess. I think this year we're all in the swing of things.
Yeah.
But it definitely has affected us. When we did virtual learning, we shut down, obviously, as the country did. So I tried to incorporate him doing virtual therapy. So I would have him still on my calls, my team calls. And a lot of times the materials that I use in the classroom, we would
So
put.
you were, sorry to interrupt you,
Yep.
Laura, but you were fully virtual last year because I know a couple
When
teachers.
the end of the 1920 school year, when COVID first started, we went
Yeah,
virtual from March on.
right.
Yeah, so for the last few months, and that was very
Okay.
sudden. We weren't expecting that. We went away on spring break, and then we didn't come back. So for about 3 months, we were virtual, and then last year we were able to come back. But a lot of our students preferred to stay virtual, so we
Right.
offered both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in those situations, if I did have a virtual group, I would still use Blaze, and I would still put things on him. I had a friend, an SLP, made a online learning game with Blaze in it, so that was really nice to try and just incorporate him. But
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of, I mean, I always tell people too, we sanitize our hands in the beginning and after with Blaze. I keep him pretty clean. I try to. So I have wipes for him. So I feel like we've always been more on the clean side before COVID started, because,
Mhm.
kids have germs, dogs have dander and everything else. So I always make them wash their hands or sanitize before and after anyway. So that part was easy. A lot of the materials that I put on Blaze can either be washed. I have mats on the floor for our students, so I would just wash those. But I think in general, yeah, COVID's been really tough. We have a lot of students that quarantine or go out, and we don't know when they're coming back. So it's challenging,
It's
but
going to be not only tough for you, because obviously if the kid is going back and forth, it's tough for you and him to stay on track. And obviously it's tough for Blaze if he's used to the same kids coming in the group. So,
yeah, but it's also nice when they do come back, because then they're so refreshed and excited to be there. So
true.
kind of like a restart, but it's unfortunate, and we're just doing the best that we can, but it does get tough sometimes.
Do you feel like they lose a lot though if they go away for a little periods? That's
It
what I
depends on the student. Yeah.
okay.
Some students have a lot of difficulties when they go out for a little bit, and then other students retain the skills and they don't have any problems picking back up. But I mean, overall, yeah, of course, we want our students with
Mhm.
us. We want them learning. So it is tough. It's a tough year. I feel like this year might
Mhm.
be a little bit more tough than last year in terms of our
Mhm.
kids being out and in, and that's just with the state of Florida and all the craziness going on
I
anyway.
hear you.
So yeah, so we're just doing our best, but
I hear you.
yeah,
We won't talk about the state of Florida right now.
I know.
It's in shambles.
6 months.
Anyway, we'll move forward with the last. Actually, I know I said last two questions a little while ago. These are technically the last two for sure.
That's
So
okay.
we'll go with the last two. Yeah. So, we always try to end this interview because we do interviews about politics, we do it about sports, lifestyle issues in general. We always try to end the interview on a hopeful side. So when people do want this, when people do watch this interview, what do you hope they get out of it? And just give us a little bit of a sunny side up feeling at the end of this
Yeah.
interview.
Well, I hope that people learn something about animal assisted therapy.
Mhm.
Like I said, there's still not a lot of research supporting animal assisted therapy, even though it is more up and coming, so to speak. So I hope that people are learning more about animal assisted therapy and the
Right.
differences between service animals and therapy dogs. And I always tell people, like on my Instagram page, I connect with a
Mhm.
lot of people in my field, a lot of speech therapists. And I made that page because I want to advocate and spread awareness about animal assisted therapy because I've
Right.
seen the huge impact. My school has seen the huge impact, and I feel that every school could benefit from a therapy dog. And I've even said that to our superintendent. I'm like, if you need somebody to, propose the idea, I'm here. I will do it because I just think in all areas, not just with speech and language, but all areas of a child's learning, I feel like a therapy dog can be impactful and helpful. And I hope that I can influence others to get started in my field and not in my field, just in general. If you work in a school or in a facility, there's facility dogs now. That's a newer term
Yeah.
as well, which is amazing because I think that opens up a lot more opportunities for others. Because I think with therapy dogs, I'm part of Pet Partners. I didn't even mention that. They're a therapy volunteer organization. So I went through
Mhm.
training and got credentialed with them, registered with them. But they're volunteer based only. So I think that kind of makes people say, well, what do I do if I want to bring them to work and things like that? And for me, I've taken continuing education courses relating to animal assisted therapy. There's a few out there relating to speech therapy and animal assisted therapy. So there are other avenues around it. And then having this newer, the term facility dog and the trainings and the corporations and organizations that have facility dogs now, I'm like, this
Mhm.
is great because hopefully it will encourage people to
Yeah.
start
To start
implementing
doing it.
therapy dogs. Yeah.
Agreed. So last thing here before we end with Lauren Kruger here on Fire Breathing Rob. Laura, where can people find more about you, about Blaze in general? If there's any way they can help out in any kind of way, just let the viewers know, please.
Sure. So Blaze has an Instagram page.
Mhm.
His handle is Blaze the Speech Dude. It's DOOD, not DUD for doodle. So that's really where I post things that I do at school and at work. And then I have a Facebook page. It's called Happy Tales Speech. I do have my LLC to do private practice on the side. Right now, I'm actually doing PRN work in a hospital, so I'm a little bit busy outside of school.
Wow.
But I do take on private clients as well and do animal assisted therapy. So I have a Facebook page on there, but all of my most recent activity that I do at work is on Instagram. So I also have an article on our national organization. If you go to asha.org, you can search for Blaze and the article will come up there. And we're in Southern Living magazine too. So I have a little blurb in there too, but most of my stuff's on Instagram.
That's where I found you, the Southern Living magazine.
Yeah. Oh,
But
awesome. Good. I'm
right,
glad.
right. So, anyways, we'll end with that, and I will put all that stuff in the description box. But Laura Kruger, thanks so much for your time. It was really enjoyable. I respect what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, and I thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
So it's
Thanks so much
great.
for
So
finding us and having us on. This was awesome.
for sure.
Thanks. It was nice talking with you.